All right, aviators, hello, skygazers. Welcome back to our Up and Away series brought to you by all of us here at Project AVIATE. We're so excited to have you aboard. This is our sixth lesson in the series. We'll be going over, as you know, takeoff procedures. So once we finished pre-flight last week and taxiing around the airport, getting ourselves to move around, now we're ready to start transitioning from that to the probably one of the most fun parts of flight, which is actually taking off and flying around. And we'll be finally going over that today. So we're so excited. Um, Make sure that if you ever make sure to remember that spreadsheet that we showed you. All the resources are on there with all the links that you need for everything in the series. Check that spreadsheet so that you know what we're doing. And also, let me get out of this. So as you can see, we are starting up here in Boeing Field. So this is an airport we've not been in the Up and Away series yet, but here's Boeing Field in X-Plane. This is one of the manufacturing plants for the Boeing Aircraft Company. You probably heard of it, as given by the name Boeing Field. So pretty excited here. And we're actually starting not on a runway, but we're starting on a ramp. Calvin, are you on the runway or are you on the ramp? Oh, you're on the runway?
I think I was on the runway.
Yeah.
Is it
Uh,
frozen for you right now?
are you moving around?
It it looks frozen to me.
It is kind of, it looks frozen to me too. If you're
Let me
moving
restart
around,
it.
I can't tell. Okay. Well, in the meantime, make sure your engines are off. And so yeah, let's just dive right into it. There's not much of an intro actually for today. So as you know, we're going to be learning to take off and cruise. So I kind of already alluded to this, but in to begin with, we started talking about how we're going to transition from pre-flight to takeoff. So pre-flight, we made sure that we are safe, pilot is safe, and our airplane is safe, ready to go. All the systems are working, and we're ready to actually get in the air. So with pre-flight checks done out of the way, how do we safely take off? You know, what's the next step for getting in the air? Well, there's actually several things we need to think about, right? So now that we've come out of pre-flight, we need to understand what are the things that are critical for an airplane's flight. You know, just before you take off, you want to be 100% sure that you're good to go. So what are the most important things that an airplane needs in order to fly? Well, airplanes what? Pitch up and down, roll left and right, yaw left and right. Those are its flight controls, and an engine needs thrust to move forward, because how else are we getting anywhere? So yes, the flight controls and the engine, those are the two most important things that an airplane needs in order to fly. So we want to test these just one more time before we actually get in the air. And also, we're going to touch up a little bit on this later when we get into air traffic and air traffic control. But there will be other airplanes in the sky with us. We live in a time where there's many airplanes flying around us, and we need to be able to see each other and make sure we're keeping good distance from each other. But in general, we need a way to be able to spot airplanes in the sky and not just say, oh my god, it's a UFO. So, how do we do that? Well, most easy way to do it is with lights. So usually this matters more at night because lights are easier to see at night, but they're also mandatory in the daytime. Just also for safety reasons, I suppose. But lights are especially important, like flashing ones, so that you know that, oh, there's an airplane right there. So this is the three main things we need to have ready before we get in the air are our flight controls, our engines, and our lights. And this forms the basis for our before takeoff checklist. Before we actually get into the before takeoff checklist, notice I asked you to start cold and dark or engines off. And we're just going to quickly recap how we start up our airplane from scratch, from cold and dark. So let's just go ahead and go over that right now. Got our doors. Great. Doors are open. Let's go ahead and get inside the cockpit. Let's get rid of the yoke for now so we can see things. Make sure master's on first. You start to see things light up. And also hear a slight whizzing in the background. Now we're ready to prime our engines. So what you want to do, fuel pump on. Got to prime the engine, go get some fuel in it so we can start it up. Gonna go mixture full rich for a couple seconds and then pull it out. Turn off the fuel pump. And we're actually ready to start our engine now. But before you do that, remember something we touched on last week is you want to alert the people outside the airplane that you're about to start your engine because propellers spin, decently fast. You don't want to get your hand caught in it. You don't want to be standing in front of it. Two ways we do that. One, we yell clear prop before we start the engine, but also there's a specific light that actually tells people we're about to start our engine or our engine's on. That's the beacon light. Make sure this is on always, especially when your engine's about to turn on. So get our beacon lights on, and we're ready to start the engine. So remember, this one's a little bit dicey. Oh, what happened here? Sorry, give me one moment. Calvin, are you ready? Are you good to go, or is something wrong?
It seems to be freezing.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Take your time. In the meantime, I actually forgot about the... Alright. Ready to start up our engine. So, let's go ahead and switch the magnetos to start and wait for the engine to cough up and start. And then we go mixture full rich. Just like that, engines are started up. Alright, great. And just before we keep going... Oh, loud. Just before we keep going, once you've yelled clear pop and you've started your engine, let's just go ahead and turn on the rest of the displays. So the aviation electronics, avionics, the gray switches, don't forget those. And since we're about to taxi to the runway, I've started up here at a ramp, a parking spot, so not the runway itself. So we're about to taxi to the runway. You want to have your taxi lights on. But also, since another important light that we like to have on, at all times when we're flying is the navigation lights. Those are, remember, the red and green lights at our wings that tell us where our wings are on the airplane. So just have those on as well. It's still too loud. Jeez. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and close the doors and get out of here. So I'm gonna go ahead and close these doors. One on the left, one on the right. And remember, you can't move until you turn off your brakes. You need to release your brakes so you can actually move forward. It's the long lever down here, or the red button on the bottom left next plane mobile. And let's just go ahead and taxi over to the runway. So we're going to go ahead and increase our throttles. If you remember our last lesson, we increased our throttles to around 1,000 RPM and get ourselves moving just like that. And we can get the yoke back on. And what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to... Remember from our taxiing tutorial or taxiing lesson, you want to follow the yellow line. So find the yellow line, start following it. In the case of Boeing Field where we parked, the runway is actually straight ahead of us, so right here. But we'll choose the big runway for now. So where it says 14R, we're going to go ahead and choose that runway. Let's line ourselves up with the taxi line here, make sure we're getting good taxi. All right. We're looking good here. Let's go ahead and turn right here. And make sure when you're about to turn, you slow down a little. Now, I know this is hard in X-Plane Mobile because the only brakes you have in X-Plane Mobile are the parking brakes. So that circle on the bottom left corner. So for now, you can use those to brake. It will suddenly slow down your plane. So only touch it for a little bit and then touch it again to release the brakes because the parking brakes are pretty strong. Alright, so we're going to turn right over here. And you're about to get to a runway when you see these flashing lights. You'll notice if you look closely, you've got flashing lights and thicker dashed yellow lines like this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. There we go. There we go. We're good. As you can see, once we get to a runway, we start to see much thicker, solid yellow lines. These are literally invisible gates, if you will. You don't want to cross these until you are cleared to cross this line. Normally, air traffic control will do this, but we're going to go over air traffic control in a future lesson. But anyway, now that we're ready to start our before takeoff checklist, we're about to take off. I'll have Steven take over.
All right, so once you are holding short of the runway, holding short is the term for where you're stopped right before the runway and you're waiting to take off. Normally there's a place for you to do a little run-up. Run-up is what we're actually going to teach you right now. So the first thing you have to do is, if your field elevation is below 3,000 feet, your red lever, your mixture, is all the way in. I know you guys have been flying at some airports. Some airports elevations are way higher than 3,000. So if your airport's higher than 3,000, your lever would not be all the way in. It would be pulled out slightly. But at Seattle, I'm sure that it is below 3,000 feet
Yeah.
field elevation. So that's why our mystery is full rich.
One way you can check is just to look at your altimeter. Usually this works. You can just look at your altimeter. This shows us that we're at around almost 600 feet-ish, so we're well below 3,000 feet. We don't need to worry about possible engine issues that can happen when we take off at higher altitudes. So yeah, you can keep going.
Now the next thing is flight plan. Now we are not teaching you how to use the GPS today, but in a future lesson we will teach you how to do a flight plan and put it in the GPS. But today, let's just say that we know where to fly, how we're departing your airport, and where we're going today. So just have a plan in mind.
Yeah. So it's like a plan in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Next, you would turn on the taxi lights.
Yeah, I think we did that before taxiing.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And then set the parking brakes and set the landing lights.
Yeah. Remember, the
Great.
landing lights are the weird ones that you actually need these for takeoff and landing. These are the brighter lights that are on the wing that help you see the runway. Mostly helpful at night, but they're these two big ones right here. They're really bright. Don't ever look directly at these. Yeah. All right.
Oh, Nikhil,
And-
I have to quickly say, Anish's altimeter on X-Plane Mobile shows his elevation at 100 feet, so he thinks your altimeter might be off. Just want to let you know.
Mine is off. It probably might be.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whose is
yeah.
off, but they're not the same.
I think I know why.
The reason why it's
Yeah,
off
I know
is
why.
there's different altimeter settings for airports.
Yeah.
So,
Different barometric pressures.
Yeah.
Anish.
yeah, if you guys go on skyvector.com and you look at the weather, I'll just pull it up right now. The altimeter is 3029. So there's a little window called the Colesman window. If you might want to zoom into it,
This one.
you set it to 3029. I don't know
Right
what
now?
it's set to. It's right now it's set to 2999.2.
Yeah.
Set it to 3029.
Yeah. Oh, this one's a little harder to do.
I'm not sure if you can do it in X-Plane, but you see how if you're changing it, it changes the needle.
Yep.
3029.
SkyVector has weather now.
I really don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm just using ForeFlight, but
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at ForeFlight. Okay, no
For
wonder.
now,
Yeah,
we're-
SkyVector.
yeah.
SkyVector doesn't have weather.
We'll actually talk about atmospheric pressure in a future lesson. Remember how we were just talking about airport elevation and how you'd need to adjust your mixture when you're at a higher elevation? We'll actually talk a little bit about the physics behind what's going on here and talk about air pressure in the future. But for now, just make sure your, what's it, Colesman?
yeah, the Colesman.
The
window.
Colesman gauge just shows like somewhere in between 29.9 and 30.0. That should be good, accurate enough for now. And this is what your altimeter reads. So yeah, we're actually at like, we're actually well below 100 feet here. But
Well, that's not
yeah.
3029. That's 2992.
yeah, that's standard.
Anyways, basic takeoff checklist. So, let's see here. Okay, so basic takeoff is just release your brakes, push the throttle in, make sure that your engine instruments are all
Wanna do the
looking
run-up?
good. Do you want to do the run-up?
Yeah, let's do the run-up.
Okay, it wasn't on the notes. So, okay, so what you would do is make sure your brakes are set. Don't let your brakes go because your plane will start moving. You push the throttle up to 1800 RPM.
All right.
Might take a couple seconds to do that. I'll let you rev it up to 1800.
There we go.
Once it is at 1800, you go to your magnetos and you notice that there is a left and a right and a both. I'm assuming the left is next to it. So now you would switch the magnetos to the left.
Just like that.
Now you go back to your RPM gauge and you make sure that it did not drop more than 100 RPM.
Yeah. Remember we were starting at 1800 RPM, which is indicated
Well,
by
that's 19.
this dash.
That's 19.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, you were at 19. That's fine.
I
So
was
now
at
you're
19.
18. So that's
Yeah.
less than 100 or
Yeah.
100.
Yeah.
Just
so-
don't go more than 100.
Yeah, so we
Now-
went down by probably like 80 or 90 RPM, which is good.
Now you just go back to both. You don't go to the other one yet. You go back to both and make sure that it jumps back up to 1900 RPM, which is what you had it at. You see?
Yeah.
There you go, 1990. Now you go to the other one that you didn't go to, which was the right one, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
So click twice. Now you're on the right. You make sure that it didn't drop more than 100.
Yep.
There you go. Now you go back to both.
And I'll actually show you the RPM gauge and the magnetos as I do it. So I'm going to go back to both, and we'll see it jump up to 1900. Just like that. A slight jump, but since it dropped only less than 100 RPM, that means our magnetos are working perfectly. And
just a quick explanation of why we do this. There are two magnetos, of course, the left and the right, and there are cylinders inside the aircraft. Each cylinder is connected to both spark plugs or both magnetos. So if one magneto fails, the other one's still working. That's for redundancy. If the left one fails, the right one still works. If the right one fails, the left one still works. So your engine is still running. It won't quit on you.
It's more a little bit more detail. There's 4 cylinders in the engine airplane, and each one has 2 spark plugs. So because there's 2 spark plugs instead of one like a regular car, if one set of spark plugs in each cylinder is run on the right magneto and the other set is run on the left magneto. So if either magneto fails, there's still a backup magneto. So that's the exact layout if you were curious.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why it's crucial to check both of them to make sure that they both work.
Yeah. Remember, if you're a little bit lost as to what the magnetos are, remember from our lesson, I believe 2 lessons ago when we were talking about instruments, how we have spark plugs inside the engine to ignite the gas, the fuel that we put in the engine to actually combust and let this propeller spin super fast. So the spark plugs are really important. If the spark plugs are not sparking, fuel is not being ignited and propeller is not being spun, which is why we need to do this test. All right. And remember
One
from the
last
beginning
thing,
of
just-
our
oh.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Remember from the beginning of our lesson, what part of our guiding question was the engines are critical to taking off, right? That's why we're also doing this engine run up. This is part of making sure our engine is in working order. All right?
And the last thing you have to do is you pull the throttle all the way out to idle and make sure that the engine doesn't quit on you. Because when you're landing, your throttle is going to be all the way back. And that means there's going to be less air going into the engines. And you want to make sure that it doesn't quit on you while you're landing. So the last thing you have to do is pull that throttle all the way out and see where it idles at. It should not shut off on you, and if it does, well, then you're going to have to bring the aircraft to maintenance and make sure that the throttle doesn't go that far out.
Yep.
So it's restricted.
So our propeller still seems to be spinning. So it looks like we're good to go. And normally you don't want to keep your throttle this low of an RPM for too long of a time because you're not really igniting the fuel fast enough to keep the
You're
propeller.
not really charging. You're not
Yeah.
really charging the avionics either. Batteries.
Yeah. So you want to actually make sure your throttle's a little bit higher than this at around, what do you say, 750 normally.
Or like 900, honestly.
Yeah. Anywhere a little bit 750 or greater RPM is a good place to idle at. So you don't want to keep it too close to 500 for too long. But anyway,
So that concludes the engine run up, which is our key point today.
next. I think we have
Now we just
controls
got the
check, right?
takeoff controls and then just takeoff checklist afterwards.
Yeah.
So your controls, you want to make sure that the controls are free and correct when you're doing this. You're turning the yokes and you're looking outside at the wings. Remember in our first couple of lessons, when you turn the yoke to the left, if you look at the left wing, the aileron moves.
Oh, it's a little hard to see because it goes up. It's
Yeah, it
easier
goes
to
up.
look on the right.
And then if you turn, if you go on the right side, you'll see it come down. And if you turn the other way, you'll see it go back up.
Yeah, this is left, so the right aileron comes down, and right, our right aileron goes up, and the left aileron should come back down. Come on, pan faster. Pan faster. There you go.
And
left
you also
aileron's
look at
down.
the elevators in the back. You just, turn your head and look towards the back. You don't turn it that way, but I guess that works too. In real life. I guess it works in the sim. You see
That's up,
your
remember?
rudders, go
Down.
down, and then your rudders left and right, which is your pedals. Or on mobile, it's your little slider.
This is rudder left. And rudder right. You have to look this way a little bit. So that's rudder right. And remember, making sure that your controls are free means that you make sure you're able to move your controls accordingly, and also your rudder pedals move accordingly. All right, that's the second key thing that we need to know before we take off. Remember, flight controls and engines, so we've got that out of the way. What do we do next?
I guess that brings us to our final checks on the slides. So
Oops.
before you take off,
Wrong, sorry.
you make sure your lights and brakes are off, or lights are on and brakes are off,
Yep.
so that you get your clearance from your air traffic control, which we'll talk about later.
Yep.
Then you taxi onto the runway, line yourself up.
And get ready to go.
Mhm.
All right, so our lights are already set. We've done the flight controls check, done the engines check. So now we're ready to taxi engine up to our 1000 RPM once again, and we're ready to line up with the runway. So let's just go ahead and line ourselves up here and get ready to take off.
So the takeoff checklist is throttles. So when Nikhil lines himself up, he will put the throttle all the way in, which is full. Right when he revs the engines up, he will look at the engine instruments to make sure that everything is in the green range. Of course, we talked about this in our first couple streams where engine instruments have to be in the green or else they're not really working that well. And then once you hit 55 knots, you would rotate.
Yeah,
So-
and one way we can actually check that our engines and electronics are in good working order when we're at full throttle is to have our brakes on and just have our throttle go in all the way so that our RPM is in the green range like this, and we see that our fuel flow is slightly higher than the ideal, but that's expected for takeoff because we're doing full thrust. And our oil temperature and pressure are also in the green range, so this is good. And our vacuum is in the green range as well. Remember, vacuum's important for our artificial horizon and heading indicator. So now that these are in the green range, and almost all these are in the green range, we're good to go and ready to take off. So I'm gonna go ahead and release the brakes, and let's just yeet on out of here. All right, remember, several things you're watching as you're taking off include your airspeed. That's actually the primary thing you want to watch for as you're taking off. And once you hit 60 knots, which we just did, pull back slightly on the yoke, and now we're in the air. That's simple. The Cessnas take off pretty fast. So, and we're gonna go ahead and increase our rate of climb to 1,000 feet per minute, which you see on the vertical speed indicator. 1,000 feet per minute. Is that a little fast? Seems a little fast. We're not speeding up. Let's get rid of this line.
So when you're flying a Cessna, you don't hold a certain feet per minute. You hold an airspeed.
Yeah.
So a good airspeed to hold while you're climbing is to be like 75 knots.
Yeah.
So
Actually,
if you're too fast, if you're faster than 75, you pull the nose back so you slow down.
Yeah.
If you're going slower than 75, you push the nose down so that you increase your speed to 75.
Yeah.
And you hold their speed.
So you can see the airspeed is actually slowly trickling down towards 70. Well, it was until, yeah. Something else you'll notice is if you're going too fast, the airplane will start to pitch up on its own. It's actually pitching up on its own right now. You can kind of see vertical speeds increasing on its own. I'm not touching the controls. And once the speed gets down to actually around 80 knots in X-plane, once that happens, then it starts to come back down again. And once it's too fast, it'll increase its rate of climb and slow down. So it's like a back and forth constantly that it pretty much does on its own. And the other thing you want to check while you're taking off is your trim. Remember, your trim actually helps you to take off or land a little bit more easily. It helps you pitch a little more easily. And we want to keep this aligned with the center for now. Oh geez, we're banking. All right, so now that we're in the air, there's just a couple things we have to watch for now that we're in the air. We're gonna go ahead and climb up to, actually exceeded, we'll climb up to 2,000 feet. So we're actually almost at 2,000 feet right now. So what I'm gonna do is wait for that 2,000 feet to happen. And all right, now that we're at 1,900, I'm gonna start pushing down on the yoke. And in order to maintain level altitude, we want to pull our throttle back to around 2,000 RPM, like so that we can maintain our altitude and just climb up slowly until we get to the 2,000 feet. And then we're going to go over a little bit of what we have to do during cruise. So let's just get that slide going on in here. Okay, So, while we're cruising, there's not much we have to take a look at here. As you can see, our speed is at around 90 knots, 80... Sorry, not 90. It's around 85 knots. That's what we're looking at right now. And you can see our plane actually tends to want to go down a little. So, remember, if we want to be as lazy as possible while we're cruising, and our plane tends to pitch down like this, something we can do is try and trim our elevators upward so that, you know, we can get a little bit more level flight. So we're going to go towards the nose up, like this. And immediately, we see the effect. Like, the plane just started pitching up on its own without us inputting anything on the yoke. So that means we actually we trimmed a little too much. So you want to be careful when you're using the trim, because the trim can actually have pretty drastic effects. And let me push the throttle in a little bit. So right about now, maybe pitch up a little bit, trim up a little bit. As long as we're doing 2000 RPM without climbing too much, trim down a little bit. And now we've reached sort of that optimal point where we're at 2000 RPM and we're maintaining pretty much level flight at around 85 knots-ish. So, oh, what did I do? All right, so that's how we're adjusting. That's how we're adjusting our power, 2000 RPM, our trim to make sure we're maintaining decently level flight, and our mixture. That's really only important at high altitudes, right?
I'm sorry, what? The mixture?
Adjusting mixture, yeah.
Yeah, we're not flying that high
Yeah.
to need to mess with the mixture.
So, as we were talking about earlier with when we were doing the engine run up and adjusting our mixture on the ground, if we're really high, remember from our second lesson when we went over physics, how air is just made up of a bunch of molecules, right? When we're at really high altitudes, there's a lot less molecules around us actually than when we're closer to the ground. So there's actually a lot less air molecules for the propeller to push forward or to thrust us forward with. Because remember, all the wings and propellers are doing is taking the air around it and just shoving it in a particular direction, and that allows us to go forward and gain lift. So when there's less of that air around us, it's not able to do that as well. And that's sort of why when we get to very high altitudes, like above 5,000 feet or so, that's when we want to start playing around with this mixture, which we might actually try in a future lesson when we get closer to cross countries. We may go over that. But for now, just practice keeping your power at a steady 2000 RPM. We're actually a little bit high. There we go. Your speed should be around constant, and adjust your trim. Adjust your trim until you can maintain a level flight-ish. Something else you'll notice is that your airplane will tend to bank towards the right. Doesn't it normally bank towards the left? Or does it actually bank to the right? The tendency.
It should be the left.
Yeah. Depending on the winds that are set in, it might also bank to the right. Who knows? But
Or
usually
maybe you're
Cessnas
just
have a
uncalibrated.
tendency to bank to the left. But anyway, if your plane is banking on its own, just slightly tilt your device. And right now, I'm not touching the controls, and we're maintaining level flight. No autopilot either. So that's the magic of the cruise checklist. All right, what's the time? It's 4:59. Okay. So that actually wraps up everything we wanted to cover in this lesson: a detailed takeoff checklist and a detailed cruise checklist, transitioning from our pre-flight from the previous lesson. If you have any questions, please go ahead and either put them in the chat or put them in that form, our Q&A form that's completely anonymous. If you're not comfortable putting it in the chat, can I have one of you guys please put the link to that form in the chat?
Yeah,
That
I can
form.
get it right now.
Yeah.
It's also on our spreadsheet, so if you guys go to our spreadsheet where we have all our links and stuff, it is on the bottom right corner.
Yeah,
I'll
but take
just
a look
get
at our
it right now.
spreadsheet. If we look at the resources table, we've got a simple form right here, very easy questionnaire. We just click on it and takes us to a question. And you don't need your email or anything, no name, nothing, completely anonymous. And our plane is banking a lot. Let's fix that. So while we're addressing any questions that you might have, we'll just go ahead and start doing a basic landing. There is a detailed landing procedure that we need to take care of, actually, but for the time being, we're gonna do it like last lesson and just sort of start turning on our own to line up with the runway. Airport's right there, so I'm gonna just turn around.
So while you turn back to the runway, Anish asks,
Mhm.
does the trim go down or up to maintain level flight? Well, when you're climbing, you have a constant like force. So when you're actually flying your plane simulator on the iPad, you feel like you always have to pitch the iPad down, or you feel like you always have to pitch the iPad up to get the plane to fly straight. So now, depending on if you're needing to push down or up on the iPad, is you use the opposite trim. So if you have to pitch your iPad up constantly to maintain level flight, you would go trim downwards so that it evens it out for you. If you have to constantly push down on your iPad to keep a level flight, then you would trim upwards so that the plane will automatically fly a level, like fly up for you, so that's basically level flight. So that's how the trim works. It depends on how you feel like your plane is flying so that you can correct it for it to fly straight and level.
Yeah, I mean, we can actually go ahead and demonstrate that. So as you can see, the plane is pretty much descending, and while it's descending, it's actually getting a little bit faster. So as it gets faster, it'll tend to start pitching up more and reduce its rate of descent. Now let's just say our our trim is set to something crazy. Let me like pitch trim down massively. Notice our pitch trim is set very much nose down, and you can see we're now hurtling towards the ground. Maybe we should fix this. Don't put yourself in this situation. So if you feel like your nose is going down way too much like that, you can see right now, it still has a tendency to pitch down. I'm not pitching down on my own, so we're gonna go ahead and increase the pitch trim, as you can see down there. Increase the trim towards nose up, and as you can see, the airplane starts climbing, just like that. That was all trim work. I didn't actually use the pitch feature of our yoke. I just used the trim. That said, trim is for finer adjustments, not for actual climbing and descending like this. So you only want to use it for fine adjustments, and yeah, that's why it's mainly critical at cruise. So if you want to maintain an altitude, that's sort of where you want to start adjusting your trim, so that if you're pitching up a little too much, then you adjust your trim down, and vice versa. If you're pitching too down, you can adjust your trim up and counteract, just like what Steven said. And while you're at it, make sure your speed stays above 80 while you're cruising, or while you're descending. When you want to descend, make sure to bring your throttle back to around 1500 RPM. Is that a good descent throttle? RPM?
Anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500.
Yeah.
If you're going super fast, then you probably slow it down to 1,000 RPM. But if
Yeah.
you're doing a normal descent, 500 feet per minute, you can keep it at 15.
And if you want to know what super fast is, I would say like more than 100 knots is super fast.
Yeah, more than 100 on a descent, it's slightly fast.
Yeah, and getting in the white range is a good descent speed. So we're in the white range right now, the thick white range on our airspeed indicator. So we're doing good. The runway is off to our right here, so we can actually just go ahead and prepare to land. Any other questions we can address at this moment? Please feel free to hit us up, or even email us, flyprojectaviate@gmail.com. Let's see, is any questions here? No questions here so far. In the meantime, let's introduce you to something that you're actually going to learn next week about the detailed landing procedures. So remember how in our physics lesson, lesson 2, we talked about how wings generate lift by redirecting all the air coming towards it, around it, so above it and below it, and that causes the arm wrestle between the air on the bottom and air on the top, and the air on the bottom pushes harder, so we're gaining lift. There's something we do with our wings to help us slow down while gaining lift, which sounds a bit counterintuitive at first, considering we gain lift only when we're flying fast enough, because air is coming at us fast enough. So how do we do that, right? How do we increase lift while slowing down? And this is important because when we're getting towards the runway, when we're about to land, we don't want to be landing super fast, otherwise we risk overrunning the runway. So how do we do that? Well, on the back of our wings, we actually have slightly extra features here. And I'm gonna deploy it right now. We have a little flap back here that just goes down like this. And what happens is, it's just taking all the air that's coming from the front here. It's taking all that air and redirecting it slightly more down, like this. And when we're pushing more air down, if you ever push against something, you feel the reaction, right? Similarly, when we're pushing more air down, we're allowing the wing to get pushed up more. So that's what's happening here. And because this flap is sort of making the bottom part of our wing uneven, so it's like perfectly flat all around here, and then suddenly there's just bump right here, right? When air hits something and when air bumps into something and it's not smooth, that's usually what causes us to slow down. So there's two things happening. Air at the bottom here is bumping into this flap and resisting our forward speed, so we're slowing down while also giving us lift. That's how you can kind of get 2 in 1, and we're going to talk about this more next week in our landing procedures lesson, so don't worry if you're a little confused for now. Any other questions we can address before we get to landing?
I don't see anything.
All right, so as I was saying about flaps, when we get close to the airport, you actually want to start deploying those flaps. So right now, the flaps are down here right below the displays. Right now it's set to 10 degrees, so the flaps are extended 10 degrees downward, just like this. And as we get closer to the runway and slow down, we're well below 80 knots, we can actually increase the degrees of flaps that we have. So we can do that. Oh, adjusting the compass. That's another thing we want to do. Right. Apologies. One more thing that you want to take care of here is when you remember how we have our heading indicator powered by the vacuum? Remember vacuum here, vacuum pressure. Our heading indicator is powered by that vacuum. We have two means of measuring the direction that we're going. A magnetic compass, so a compass that you probably have at your house. It's probably magnetic. And our vacuum quote-unquote compass or heading indicator. And you want to make sure these two tell you the same thing. Remember, this is also giving you a direction that you're going. And it says north here. So right now, we should be at around, let's see, 33, 34, 345 degrees in heading. Sorry, I'm blanked out. So according to this big line right here, we're heading 345 degrees. We want to make sure that that's the same reading that we see here. And as you can see, it's slightly not. It's showing us 350. Let's go ahead and adjust that using the knob on the left until we have to unpause it for this to work. Until we get around 345 degrees, just like that. And you actually have to keep doing this every how many minutes or so, Steven? In flight?
It really doesn't. Whenever you notice that it's not the same, honestly, when you're flying, maybe like every 15-30 minutes, you would check once in a while.
Yeah. And what are reasons it could become unaligned? What are reasons that these two stop becoming aligned?
Well, because we talked about how the heading indicator is a little gyro in the background. It's a little spinning. It's a disc that's spinning super fast.
Yep.
But because it's spinning super fast, when you're using it a lot, when you're turning and banking the airplane, it slowly starts like not working on the same as it used to. So it slowly processes and it's not showing the same thing. And sometimes you notice that's not correct because when you're coming in to land, your heading indicator is showing a different number than the runway number. What runway are you landing on right now?
One of the 3-4s. 3-4 center.
Okay, so since he's landing on runway 3-4, one of the 3-4 runways, his heading indicator should be showing approximately 340. Now, sometimes when you're flying a lot and you're practicing landings, sometimes it might not say 340, it might say 330 or 350. That's when you know that you should check and align the compass, the magnetic compass, to the heading indicator. And it is not a good thing to be aligning the compass to the heading indicator when you're doing maneuvers. When you're accelerating or decelerating, or if you're turning and banking, that is not a good time to be aligning them together, because one, it's moving, and two, the magnetic compass sitting on top of the aircraft actually has a lot of errors in it. There's so many errors that it's really hard to understand, but I can literally give you a short overview. If you're heading either east or west direction and you speed up, that magnetic compass will show a turn to the north. If you are heading east or west and you slow down and you decelerate, that thing's gonna spin towards the south.
Really? I wanna try
Yeah.
that.
And another thing is, if you're on a north heading and you turn to the left or the right, so if you're facing north and you're turning east or west, it will go in the opposite direction. So let's say you're facing north and you want to turn to the right, which is east, it will show a turn to the west for a couple of seconds, and then it will catch back up to you.
All right.
Now
So
the exact,
what do you want
yeah,
me to
go
do? Let's demonstrate it. What do you want me to do?
so go in exactly north,
Exactly
real
north.
quick. Exactly north.
All right. Let me. Oh, wrong way. Oh, I'm so dumb. Right. It's
Yeah.
the opposite. It's the opposite direction.
That's something that IFR pilots need to learn. It's the opposite of what you want to go.
Oh, you can kind of tell. It's like.
It's lagging, huh? Look,
Yeah.
see, that's
see that?
that's another error. There's lead and lag on this thing too. So
Yeah.
so what I was telling him to do is that if you're facing north and you turn, let's say you're facing north and you turn to the right, which is east, right?
Yeah.
When you're turning to the east, the compass will show you turning to the west for a couple of seconds.
Like it is
You
right
see,
now.
yep, right there. It shows you turning to 330, which is west, which it's towards the west. Then it'll catch back up to you. It
Yeah.
will catch back up to whatever heading you're on.
See, it says 330 here, but actually, we're
You're
030.
030. And the exact opposite happens when you're on a south heading. So if you're facing south and you turn to the east or the west, instead of going the opposite direction, it will go in the correct direction but faster than what you're turning. So let's say you're facing south and you're turning to the left, which is east, right? It will show you turning to the east, but it will show you like turning like way faster. You could be on a heading of 150, but it's going to be showing like 14 or 130 because it's towards the east and it's
Really?
faster.
Wait,
Yeah.
let me turn south a little bit. Let's see if we can actually get that to work.
And right when you finish that, I will tell you another turning error that you saw earlier, which was the not being on the correct.
Might not actually have time for it. It's 5:13, but we can discuss
Okay,
it
well,
in the next.
while
lesson.
he's trying it out, another last error that it's really common is that it's called ands and unos. So ands is, or no, that's sorry, no, unos, undershoot north and overshoot south. When you're turning to a heading that's north, like closer to north, you have to undershoot it, because if you roll out at exactly north, it will show you way past north. Like you're gonna be over, you overturned it. Same thing happens if you're on the south headings. You're supposed to be undershoot north, overshoot south. So if you're turning to a south, which is 180, if you're turning to 180 and you land on exactly 180, you're gonna fall short of 180. So that's why you have to overshoot 180 so that you compensate for it.
Okay,
So
show me
that's
what
where
to do
Uno's
right
comes in.
now. Now we're facing south.
Let's see.
Turn towards east.
Before you turn, so when you're on a south and you turn, it's gonna show you a turn in the same direction but faster.
Really?
So keep turning real quick. You have to turn more, like turn
All
more.
right.
Keep turning, and then pause it once it says 150.
Yeah. It says
Notice
one-
how on your heading indicator it's not 150, but the magnetic compass is.
Yep. It's
You see how it's faster than what you're actually turning.
yeah.
So technically you're at 155, but your magnetic compass is showing 150. It's turning faster than what you actually are.
Yep. And that's why.
And the opposite happens when you're facing north and you turn. When you're on a north heading and you're turning, it goes in the opposite direction, which might be more interesting if you want to try out real quick.
I think I did just try that out before.
Yeah.
The north, but
So
it is.
so
fine.
so the key point is that do not align your heading indicator to the magnetic compass when you're maneuvering or turning,
Do
or
it while
accelerating or decelerating. Because if you look, if you go on an east heading, I think you're really close to an east heading, aren't you?
A little bit.
Go to an east heading and start accelerating and decelerating. That magnetic compass will show a turn to the north or the south.
All right, I'm good. Okay, here's east, and I'm just gonna go full throttle. Oh yeah, it started
It
to turn
turns.
a little bit.
Yeah, and then if you go all the way throttle back,
Yup.
there. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You see that turn?
Yeah. Just one last time.
It's.
So I'm gonna go full. Whoa. I'm gonna go full throttle in. Starts to turn, and then full throttle out. Starts to turn, even though I'm going straight. But yeah, moral of the story: make sure you're at a level speed and a level bank, so you're not banking at all before adjusting your heading. And with that, thank you for the extra notes, Steven. That was really helpful. We hope you have a great weekend. It's sunny where we are, at least, so go step outside. And once again, don't forget to go plane spotting and sky gazing, I guess. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.
Bye.